So
Good
I
morning,
start.
everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maurizio Gamberucci. I am with the Italy America Chamber of Commerce of Texas, Deputy Director. We're here today for a special edition of our conversation about wine, food, and Italian authentic products during this pandemic. We have today special guests we're very happy to host. We're talking about Primitivo and Zinfandel, a traveling wine, the Murgia Case. We're talking about Puglia region in Italy, specifically the area of Bari, from the
Mm.
Consorzio Vini PDO DOP Gioia del Colle. We have a few guests today here. I'm very happy to be with them. We have Mr. Vincenzo Verrastro, which is the president of a Consorzio Vini DOP Gioia del Colle, and Domenico Spinelli, local producer from Puglia, uh, from the winery Terre di Vaaz. With us, we have also our friend, board member of the Chamber of Commerce, Niccolo Lorimer, traveling probably in Pennsylvania. Hello, Niccolo. Nice to having you here with us today. And last but not least, our master of ceremony, Jeremy Parzen, friends of many adventure, which will lead the conversation today. Again, our goal is to talk about the Primitivo grape in Puglia. Jeremy, the floor goes to you. Thank everyone to be here.
Thank you, Maurizio. I'm really glad to see you guys. And I'm really excited to talk about Primitivo and Gioia del Colle. And on our pre-call, we were talking about how Americans have a whole new Primitivo to discover. So I love Vincenzo, if it's okay, we'll start with you. You're
Yeah.
director of the consortium of Gioia del Colle. I've been to Gioia del Colle, of course, and it's the one hilly part. Unfortunately, though, not a lot of Primitivo from Gioia del Colle comes to America, and we need to change that. That's what we're working on today, right? The fantastic wines. These are hillside wines, which you can't say about everywhere else in Puglia. Vincenzo, you guys created a program. You called it the Traveling Vine, and Primitivo obviously
Yeah.
is a great variety that historically California, Puglia, even ex-Yugoslavia. It's an international grape variety that starts to show up in the 18th century. Tell us why you called your program the Traveling Vine, right? The case of the Murgia Case sounds like a detective novel. Sounds like a
Well,
intermediary
it's
novel.
quite easy to start. Can you hear me, please? Or can you hear me? I think so. Yes, it's quite easy to speak about a traveling wine because since the beginning, the Primitivo wine was a traveler. I mean, I'm an agronomist. I'm even a researcher, a PhD in food quality, and a director as well of the consortium. And one of my different studies was about the origin of Primitivo. And as you probably know, Jeremy, it does not belong totally to Puglia region, but belongs more to the Balkan areas.
Mhm.
From the Balkan areas, probably due to the migration of some population around, probably we think about 14th century, there was a shift of these rootstocks or whatever they were at the moment, because rootstocks comes after, only from a couple of centuries, here in Puglia, traveling through the migration of population, dominus, or whatever it happens. But as you know, the traveling is so we are coming from the Balkans, and my recent studies told me also that in Croatia and in Montenegro there are some certain origin of it. But the first place in the world in which the Primitivo took his name was here,
Yeah.
just not far from where I am. I am now in Gioia del Colle, the town that gives the name to the denomination. And 3 kilometers away from here, an old priest at the end of 18th century decided to identify some specific characteristics of this spreading among the town vineyards. These vineyards were not so similar, but some of them could be considered like a sort of muscle selection. It was ante litteram, we say in Italian. It was one of the first, in order to see what is going to flowering later than the other clones that were around or similar that, and was grapening before. And so this was the early stage of the mass selection then from our local priest, because it was the priest of the most important church in Gioia del Colle, the central one. Francesco Filippo Indelicati is the name of this ancient man. And he decided to call it, because it was flowering after and ripening before, primativus. Primativus is a Latin term that means before the others, as you know. Now, after this, immediately after, not more than a couple of 20 years probably, after marriage, there was the other trip. And so it goes from the north, from this part, we are more or less in the central part of Puglia, to the southern part of Puglia, near the sea, where it became very important, as now they know as Primitivo of Manduria. But in the meanwhile, during several travels, or probably for war reasons, some of these crops were even shifted to United States. Mm-hmm. And as you know, some of them tried to transplant in exactly where I do suppose that you are now. You are in San Diego, as far as I know. So it means that on the west coast of America, someone did the transplantation of this kind of crops, named as Zinfandel. But, and this is an ancient tale, but I don't want to spend many times, I'm speaking about the 60s, two professors, one of them has been my professor, Professor Martelli, that I used to have as a friend since he passed away a couple of years ago, and Professor Gusen, coming from Davis University, were having dinner together in Bari. And Professor Martelli proposed to Professor Gusen a local primitivo, that was the one coming from Gioia del Colle. Professor Gusen said, come on, you're taking me. This is not a primitivo. This is a Zinfandel. No, this is a primitivo. No, this is a Zinfandel. You can imagine. But differently from the other kind of people who were teaching or discussing about around a glass of wine, they decided to go deeper in it. And so they established a research line done between Davis University, Bari University, even with the Croatian University. And at the end, they acquired that Zinfandel and Primitivo as the same root. They come from the same origin, with some genetic and genotypic differences, of course, because everywhere you settle a new vineyard, there is a change. But this is another testing or another, let's say, proof that the Primitivo is a traveling wine.
One of the things that's so interesting about what you're saying is, you know, we know that Primitivo originates in the Balkans, that comes to Italy, comes to Puglia. People don't realize that two things to remember. Puglia until the 18th century was part of the Venetian Republic, right? And right. It was
just the coast.
It was one of the most important hubs for commerce. We don't think of Puglia like that today but in the ancient world, before the modern era, it was the hub where everything came through. The Greek, going back to the Greek colonization, but especially during the time of the Venetian Republic. And one thing you can say, what I love about what you said is that Primitivo, wherever it came from in the Balkans, it's Puglia that shares it with the world. It goes out from Puglia. Right. And that's such an important point when you talk about, you also made such an important point that when you take a cutting and you plant it in a new place, it's going to have some type of genetic mutation over time. Another really interesting point that, and I'd love to hear you guys, the other question I have for you, Vincenzo, is can you talk about the differences between California and Domenico? I want to get to you in a second too and talk about terroir and microclimate, because it's so important to learn more about Gioia del Colle, where you guys make fantastic expressions of Primitivo. But can you tell us, Vincenzo, can you just give us one more note? Genetically, what is the difference between the Zinfandel my brothers who are lawyers in San Diego love, and the Gioia del Colle?
Well, thank you for the question, Jeremy. The point is that the genetic origin is more or less the same. The point is that there are several, let's say, differences between genetic part, between the one that was selected in Croatia, the one that was selected in other part of Balkans, the one selected here in Gioia del Colle, and the one probably as clones selected in Manduria. And of course, there is a big difference according even to the changes that happens between the West Coast in general of United States and there. But the point is that when you speak about wine, it's difficult to speak about DNA because things change during different process, maturation, and fermentation. When you speak about crops, the DNA more or less you can consider it stable. That's why the common roots are there. But as all the other vineyards differentiate themselves, another big example is the Grenache that you have heard about in the Mediterranean Sea. That everywhere you go, you find someone that is, I have the Grenache. Anyone has got, but who is the real owner, we really don't know. The only thing that is sure is something that can help you telling the story. The story is that. And this has been proved from several books, historic and whatever. Of course, we can't go back in time till 5, 6, or 7 centuries ago, because in that time there were no only oral testimonials can be the one that you can find. The written one are the one that I told you before. The first harvesting of Primitivo, 100%, is 1800 here. Liponti Contrade, who is 3 kilometers away now from the center of Gioia del Colle, in which we have the historical vineyards that we, of course, rebuilt because it was not possible to have the one of 2 more than centuries ago. But we have the origin of it. Then everything is what happens normally in the life of humanity. Everyone wants to bring with him what he cares for. And that's why they bring the Primitivo wherever, in Manduria, in other part of Italy, and of course even in California or in USA.
I think that, and I've tasted a lot of Zinfandel, of course, and even when you taste with the, the famous Moon, I can't remember, but the historic place where Zinfandel was first grown in California, it's called Moon Valley or something. It's part of Sonoma. Sonoma.
Pomona, yeah.
Those wines are so different. They're grown in different soils. They've been there for a long time. So they've really, in my mind, just as a taster, they're, and then you throw into that, they're very distinct. The California type and the especially Gioia del Colle to me is a very special expression. It is the spiritual homeland of Primitivo, and it's to me the greatest expression. I'm sorry for all my friends who are in other parts of Puglia, but Gioia del Colle is the one. It's the best in my view. But there, you throw into the California mix the oaky style, the concentrated style. You got a lot of growers in California who are yeasting, who are inoculating, and to try and get the classic style of wine. My brothers, the lawyers, the power lawyers in San Diego, they want an oaky, jammy Zinfandel.
Sweet.
So you get this like totally different animal than, I mean, if you weren't an experienced taster, you would taste Gioia del Colle and an oaky fruit bomb California Zinfandel. You're like, why are we even talking about the relation? They're so different. Now, Domenico, it's funny. So a lot of the Primitivo that comes to the United States from Puglia actually doesn't come from Gioia del Colle. We don't have a ton of Gioia del Colle in the market, yet Gioia del Colle is, as Vincenzo explained historically, is the spiritual homeland. Can you tell us, you're a grower in Gioia del Colle, what makes, historically we have Primitivo from Manduria, which is on the western coast, which tends to be really big and bold in style. We have a lot of Primitivo now today grown in Salento, I would say, but Gioia del Colle, tell us the differences about terroir and soil types, exposure. What makes Gioia del Colle such a unique expression of Primitivo?
Thanks, Jeremy. So let me just add some details about the historical overview made by Vincenzo Verrastro. So I'm the secretary as well of the Consortium. Primitivo is an expression of a special land, but we underestimate the anthropology of the wine, because in our wine culture, there are many influences. One is from the Balkans, for sure, because the refugees were invited by Miguel Vaaz in 17th century to populate the area. around the Gioia del Colle, Casa Massima, and San Michele di Bari. And from the Balkans, we receive a lot of influence in terms of know-how. This know-how was was about the fermentation, was about the cultivation of the vineyards. And we had as well influenced by Spain and Portugal using the wood. So this is the anthropology of the wine. If we want to go deeper into the terroir, Murgia is a plateau. Is more ancient than Alpines, comes from the Mesozoic, the beginning of the Mesozoic.
Domenico, I just want to throw in one thing for our viewers today. And I love what you're getting. Remember, guys, that when you're in Puglia on a clear day, you can see Albania across the sea.
Sure.
I mean, you have to remember, we think of Italy as being detached from, but if you go to the beach on a summer day in Puglia, you literally can see the Balkans so it's important. I just wanted to point out how tightly related.
Yeah, Jeremy,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to throw that.
This relationship is still strong. It's still strong.
Yeah.
So we produce elegant wine and dry wine since the 7th century. So that's why we produce a wine with a different profile than Manduria. Obviously, the DNA of Zinfandel or Primitivo of Manduria is almost the same, but the identity of the product, the identity of the colors is different, the process is different, the terroir is different. Murgia, during the springtime in May, received escalation, temperature escalation during the night from 7 to 21 degrees.
And hey, just let me throw in. Let me just throw in there. What you're talking about is diurnal shift, temperature shifts, right? Cool.
Yeah, temperature.
Diurnal shifts, right? That's so just to make it clear for everybody who's doing, we're talking about those hot summer days and cool summer nights. That really is one of the things that ties together all the great wine regions of the world, where you have that slow ripening in summer. It's the diurnal shifts. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Exactly, Jeremy. This is so important. The vineyards, they suffer the escalation, and they open up the little mouth. They take from the wind all the fragrances of the bush, of the Mediterranean bush. They take aromas from the flowers, from the trees. So that's why our wines are more complex, are more. I don't want to obviously celebrate too much this tradition, but it's our identity. It's our identity. This identity is made by know-how and a very lucky coat. So the Murgia was the baby coat of the Primitivo, was the baby coat. So that's why he's still traveling now. Now he's traveling in Southern America, he's still traveling. But it's important, the know-how and the importance of the wine production for the local communities. Many communities like Gioia del Colle, San Michele di Bari, they had Jewish influence, they had Spanish influence. They survived thanks to the vineyards for many centuries. So this is important in terms of imprinting of the know-how and the ability to execute wine. Now we are learning how to promote, how to sell. Now we are learning how to sell.
And Domenico, there's an expression in Italian, pane per I miei denti. I love, to me, the cultural element of wine is so important. I'm so glad you talked about that. And I just want to say again, remember, Puglia historically is this major hub where the Venetians come, the Spanish come, the Balkans come.
You're right.
This is, I mean, an analogy would be Trieste, where all these cultures in Friuli, where all these cultures historically intermingle. And you make such an important point. We forget, you know, with all the talk of natural wine doesn't happen naturally. Human intervention, as Claude Levi-Strauss would have said, has to make a rational distortion of nature. Wine doesn't happen, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. I love one more question about terroir, and I know we have some other topics to cover, but another thing that people don't realize about Puglia is that Puglia is actually ancient seabed. We had limestone, right? I recently did a study for my own use where I really started looking at geology. You know, we go Burgundy, okay, limestone. These are all the great California limestone, and you know, the great places to. Puglia is like, it was this geologically was the last formation of the European. It's kind of, it was the last place that you have the youngest limestone there, but it is a great, and Gioia del Colle is where all these things come together. The Puglia climate, which is Mediterranean, right? Altitude and hills, that it's the one part of, so you have all, you know, the other thing, go ahead, Vincenzo, please.
No, don't forget another meteorological thing that is quite important, with the wind. Because no one takes care about that. But we are in the middle of Puglia, I would say in the heart of Puglia, and we are in the middle of the Balkan side wind and the southern south wind. That means coming from Africa. So we have during the summer period, according even to the difference of temperature and so of barometric pressure that you were saying before, a lot of wind, not so intense, but continuous, all around, all during the day. This, I'm an agronomist, don't forget, is a very important issue in order to avoid some problems of mushrooms, plasmopara and the botrytis and whatever they're familiar to this. So even the early ripening is quite important because normally you escape from them. And that's the reason why I can say 90% of the farmers who are producing wine here are converted to organic, with another important aspect of our wines. All our productions, more or less, are very familiar with organic, and the treatments that we do in the field for fertilization and other kind of things are so poor, even in terms of chemical treatments for pests and problems, that you never have some necessity to add some sulfites into the wine, because they are maintaining their characteristics without any big addition of other chemical inputs.
Now, you said another so important thing about the ventilation, right? It's such a, remember, Puglia is this peninsula at the top of the it's such a unique place in the world. I mean, I'm always inspired by the beauty of Puglia, but its uniqueness. There's no place geologically, topographically, it's such a unique place in the world. And before we need to talk to a little bit about market trends for this call, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts about that. But just one more thing I'd like you to address about the terroir is light. Puglia, the light is you know, and winemakers, growers often talk about light. It's what's the role that Puglia is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's bathed in light, right? It's such a unique, what does that have any effect on the wine? And what do you guys, any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So many influences are linked with the structure of our peninsula. We call Puglia Peninsula inside the peninsula.
Yeah.
Yeah. Originally, Puglia was made by three merging lands. And the first was on the north, so Daunia. In the central, now we have Murgia, and the last piece was the peninsula we call Terra d'Otranto. Now it's called Salento. but this piece of land are influenced by geological factors. So our carbonate is full of fossils.
Yeah. It's
It-
ancient
it-
seabed. It's ancient.
Yeah, it's full of fossils, even volcanic dust, and is full of organic soil, but natural organic soil. So that's why the vineyards, they don't invest too much in chemicals addition. So we were organic before the organic trend.
Try not
Yeah.
to be so technical, Jeremy, but there is a trelling system of the vineyard, which is not so common, luckily, for the wine production, but it's more for the table grapes. We call it tendone, with big curtain. It's
Yeah.
like to create a big surface of photosynthetic leaves that can intercept the more sun that they can in order to have even 30, 40, sometimes 50 tons of yield per hectare, with a huge amount. It is impossible to have it there in Gioia del Colle, not for because we are able to prepare this trelling system, but this depends on the poorness of the soil. We have calcareous soil, so our fertility is quite poor, and even the place or the space in which the roots can elongate is not more than 40 centimeters. So the added value of this terroir is specific not only for the wind, not only for the calcareous soil, not only for the ability of the winemaker like Domenico is, but even because these conditions in Puglia are unique. You can find another place with these characteristics. That's why even our wines are unique. And returning to your previous question about Zinfandel, you can have differences between the same Primitivo planted and grafted and cultivated here in Gioia del Colle, and not so far, it's 50 kilometers south, in Manduria, in which you can have even the same clones, but the wine will be completely different.
Completely different.
Because we are based on chemical and on meteorological aspects that are completely change, define let's say the taste of the wine. I'm also a wine tester, but anyway, I don't want to mess too many
No,
things.
that's such an important point. I mean, again, going back to the traveling wine, Primitivo takes a different expression. It's so influenced by the terroir where it's grown. It's such an interesting grape that connects so many things. Now, we don't have a ton of time here, but I know we want to talk a little bit about market trends. And I've been writing about Italian wine for 20 years. I remember the time in New York. Who remembers Niccolo Marzovilla in New York, and he opened Truly, and it was a Pugliese. He had it was kind of this great moment for Primitivo. I remember sitting with Cesare Casella and Daniel Boulud at the bar at Truly and pouring them I worked there at Truly and pouring them Primitivo, and they were like, "Wow, we didn't even know this is fantastic." Primitivo still hasn't broken away from let's be honest, it has a marketing and image problem. Man, I can, when I ran a wine list in LA, people would come and say, "Oh, I don't want Primitivo, I want no," and I would say, "Let me pour you Gioia del Colle." I'm not making this up. And I would convert people saying, "I had no idea that Primitivo could attain, again, that freshness." The thing that's about Gioia del Colle is the freshness, the purity of the fruit. They're amazing wines. I would blow people away. I said, "Try a Gioia del Colle. It'll blow your mind." And it worked every time. What's going on with why aren't we drinking more Gioia del Colle in the United States? And when are you guys coming? And let's do a big tasting in Houston. Let's make Houston the epicenter of the new Gioia del Colle revolution. I'm not kidding.
It's marketing. But Jeremy, so there is a huge stereotypes about Primitivo.
Mhm.
So the challenge is overcome a sort of prejudice, because Primitivo is the most common wine, maybe worldwide. But nobody knows Gioia del Colle, because the challenge is to promote the identity, but promote the product and its uniqueness. because acidity and fruit and smoothness is very difficult to combine, but we had already. It's important to promote the terroir as a cru. Murgia is a cru. So that's why we need to enhance the image of the product. We need to enhance our roots. But Puglia is it can be a problem because the big wines are not in the regional section.
Yeah.
So when our wines will be in big wine section, we'll achieve the objective, because the image of the Puglia, it means mass wine, but now it's changing. People are discovering, are digging authenticity, identity and authenticity. So our wines are unique, but not because are primitivo. You know what I say? So
I love
we
it.
need to stop to sell primitivo, but we need to start in selling new product with strong identity, because primitivo can be sometimes somewhere in top restaurant misleading. So one of the best sommelier in Italy is proposing Gioia del Colle wines as a big wine. This is a new event. So we produce complex wine. We need to discover, to share new fragrances, new taste. So that's why we are building, thanks to the consortium all together, we are building a new image of the Primitivo.
Yeah.
So
No,
very tricky, but this is the challenge.
Domenico,
Because
I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says Murgia is a crew. I love
Murgia
that.
is a crew. Okay. Next,
I need a T-shirt. I need a T-shirt that says, "Guys, you need to start."
Murgia is a crew, but geologically, in terms of civilization, so it's a small piece of the central Puglia, where you can find the ancientest tools to grow the vineyards, the ancientest tool to graft the vineyards, to take care of. This is an experience. So now we need to involve customers worldwide, from US, from China, and share this experience, this unique experience. In this case, Manduria has a different image. So it's important, but it's not us.
Well, I'm here as we may jump in just 1 second from my car traveling. I've been listening, and I'm here as a witness, and not trying to push it, but the communication, the being able to learn, the things that we're doing today with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Gruppo Italiano that our friend Nicola Marzovilla you were talking about is a member of. These are people, they're point of reference, where you can learn more about a producer, an area, and we have to keep our eyes on those things, because there's plenty of bad information and there's plenty of marketing out there. But here we are all about learning and bringing to the table real wine. And going back to what we were talking about, the traveling vine, you know, it comes to mind. I'm learning in this situation, this talk and discussion, that how many roads must a vine walk by before you can call it a vine? And the answer is in the wind of the Murgia. Everyone, wrapping up this meeting in a few seconds. I give Jeremy the last word. And I really appreciate for you bringing the knowledge to us and a little bit of lightness and enlightenment. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure, guys. I love Gioia. I love Gioia del Colle, and I'm with you 1,000%. Let's break it out. These wines are great. Again, I'll just close, and I know we're at the end of our time today. Thank you to Vincenzo, Domenico, and Niccolo. Thank you, Maurizio, for hosting today. Primitivo, I'll just close by saying, you know, one of the neat things about Primitivo is also the name. And Americans always respond to the name. It's kind of like Brunello is a lot easier to say than Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, right? And Primitivo has, the name is a lot, it means more than people think. Linguistically, it's very friendly to people. And I see Americans that go, oh my gosh, Primitivo, it sounds primitive. It's an exciting, and it's something that I think, my vision for changing the consumers' perceptions of Primitivo starts there by starting with the grape name. And I know we got to go. Gentlemen, thank you so much I love that I get to do this for a living, learn more about grape growing regions. I love the wines of Gioia del Colle, and guys, I cannot wait. Hopefully, if I can get over to Italy to teach in this summer, I'm going to grab a plane in Torino, and you guys can come pick me up at the airport in Bari. Okay, deal?
I know.
Okay,
We
you are
wait for
invited.
you all here. We wait
You
for
are
you
invited.
all
Can't
here.
wait. I can't wait. Thank you.
Everyone
What a
is
great,
invited.
this turned out to be such a great webinar. This was really, really great. Thank you so much.
Great,
you,
thank
Jeremy.
you, everyone. What a great gem at the end of our Taste of Italy Festival 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone, for being part of it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Maurizio. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you anytime.
Bye, Vincenzo.
Ciao,
Bye.
Domenico. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a
See you soon.
We hope to see each other soon.
Bye.
Bye.